What up, all you film exiles, all ye that have been banished to the cinematic wastelands for your hot takes, for not following groupthink, for not going with the popular crowd. Gather ye here for another episode of your favorite entertainment news podcasts. Today, we have ENN number 11, and it's going to be a doozy. I tell you, it's going to be a doozy. As per usual, I am not alone. I'm joined by Paul.
Hey Lupe, looking forward to another episode. I think we might be down a man, exiled from the Exiles, but I think we have a capable replacement today.
Absolutely, yes, we do. From our sibling pod, the Exiles Network, we have Manu.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Without further preamble, here's the rundown. Today we'll be talking about Release the Snyder Cut's second anniversary and how the movement was able to celebrate that. We're going to talk about Henry Cavill's comments about Superman and about the past DCEU movies that he starred in. We're going to talk about Alan Moore's 3-year-old comments about superhero movies and superhero culture in the mainstream. We're going to talk about Charlie's Angels' box office failure and Elizabeth Banks' controversial comments about what the reason for those are. And then in our coming soon section, we're going to talk about the new Cats trailer. We're going to talk about the new Six Underground trailer, and we're going to talk about The Way Back, which stars Ben Affleck. So here we go. A couple of days ago was November 17th, which marks the second year anniversary of when Justice League was released in theaters. If you do not know the history of the Release the Snyder Cut campaign, on our channel we have a 3-part video series that details the course of events that lead up to the campaign, all the members, the participants, the twists, the turns, and you can get a very comprehensive history on how this movement started. Incredibly, the members and supporters of this campaign made a lot of noise on Twitter. They shook the table. The hashtag Release the Snyder Cut was trending #1 pretty much everywhere on the planet, in the galaxy, with about 750,000 tweets. That's 750,000. That's approaching a million. Joining their efforts were a lot of celebrities, a lot of actors. We had people like Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, the director himself, Zack Snyder, actors even from the Marvel side of things, directors from the Marvel side of things, people like Damon Lindelof. Manu, let's start with you. What's your reaction to seeing how monumental and how incredible and earth-moving the efforts of the Release the Snyder Cut campaign have been, and where particularly on the second anniversary?
The first thing that comes to mind is it's about damn time. It's about damn time. It was really wonderful to see all of these people who we've been championing for as well, because it's not just Zach's vision. These people also played an active part in that movie, and I think the world does deserve to see their work. It was so invigorating to see Gal Gadot tweet. She hadn't said anything about it ever since this whole thing started. Affleck, same thing. Affleck was such a huge get, and then just to see the outpouring of love and support from the Hollywood community, I think that meant a lot, because you can say a lot about Hollywood, but like at the end of the day, it is a very small town. All of these people know each other in one way or another, or have worked together, or have like connections, and it was just so great to see all of them come out and ask for the Snyder Cut, just as we've been doing for the past 2 years. And I think the one that I loved the most was Joe Manganiello posting all those amazing pictures of him as Slade Wilson on Instagram. Like, that was awesome. And honestly, it was such an exciting and just a beautiful day to see all of that coming through. My heart was full that day, and it's still full now all these days later, because it's nice to see that good things come when you persevere and you keep fighting for something that you really believe in.
Agreed. Paul, what's your take on?
Yeah, well, I think Manu kind of hit it on the head. It was invigorating. It was cathartic. It was satisfying. It was a relief. We had a busy week of lead up with a lot of impressive tweeting, but when we set that goal of 214K, I thought it was going to take everything we had to hit that goal, and we destroyed it. That was just so satisfying and such a relief. And like Manu said, to see all the people jumping on board, and I mean that really gave it a boost too. I mean, not only did it boost the people participating, but it's like the floodgates just broke when Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck tweeted, and then Snyder retweeted them. Ray Fisher again showing his support, and then the list of people that continued to use the hashtag throughout the day and into Monday was just really heartwarming. And as I said, it validates what we're doing, gives us legitimacy in the eyes of I think the wider public that maybe didn't see us as a legitimate movement or pursuing a legitimate or viable cause. I mean, just looking at the list, it must have been 20 or 30 people. We got Snyder himself, you got Jay Oliva again showing his support. You've had Momoa and Ray Fisher, Kersey Clemens, Ray Porter, Fabian Wagner. We already talked about Godot and Affleck. We've got even Diane Nelson throwing her name in the hat with the Release the Snyder Cut hashtag. Karen Bryson, Joe Manganiello, Dave Bautista, Ryan Reynolds, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, David Ayer, even Clay Enos again, and the list goes on. There's probably another, him too. Jackie Earl Haley, Nick McKinless again. I think that might have even been today, Nick McKinless, or maybe yesterday. Rob Liefeld continuing to support.
And let's not forget
Junkie XL too.
And let's not forget the excellent stunt video that we saw from the stunt team that they posted yesterday.
Yes.
That was also great to see, and it's a lot of stuff that we didn't get to see in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. That was impressive. And I think I even saw someone else saying that Chris Terrio had chimed in, and I didn't see that myself. I'm not sure if that's the case. But between Twitter and Instagram, it was a really, really impressive showing of support. It sure feels like there's something to this.
Yeah, my take from the whole thing is pretty much the same as yours, but I really want to highlight something important. A lot of outlets that have reported on the day's events have talked specifically about Gal Gadot, about Ben Affleck, about Jason Momoa. The heart and soul, the bulk of this tweeting was by fans. This movement is by fans, for fans, and when I say fans, I don't just mean, people who don't have, like a blue check mark or aren't celebrities, even including, people like Zack Snyder and Ben Affleck. They're all fans as well. What I'm saying is that the impact that we felt, yes, it was helped a lot by, celebrities, but 700 and about 70,000 tweets doesn't just come from one or two people or even a handful of people. So, I mean, the power of the fandom and how they have escalated, these events from something, from just a little spark, from a tweet to a spark to full-blown passion to a movement that cannot be denied. And the movement is growing. That's the craziest thing about it. A lot of people who first saw the Release the Snyder Cut campaign, the hashtag, whatever, thought, okay, this is just another one of those fan campaigns. It's going to be on fire for, a couple of weeks or maybe a couple months if they're really about it. And now, 2 years later, it's bigger than it ever was. And at this point, Warner Brothers, everybody, pro, con, and indifferent, are looking at Warner Brothers like these guys are out of their mind not to respond to this positively, not to be able to capitalize on this moment. This tweet and this little anniversary campaign, it trended bigger than HBO Max when HBO Max came on. It trended bigger than a lot of their movies when they announced them. So personally, it was just amazing to see, amazing to be part of, amazing to see the tide turn, and not just the tide has swelled into a wave and into a tsunami, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
In addition to all these people that were involved in the production or that are actors or other directors, even some of the people that got us in this situation in the first place, the verified check marks that turned on the Snyderverse were coming out and reporting supporting the hashtag. And you could just feel the change of momentum. And like you say, they'd be foolish not to take advantage of it. I mean, we've created their marketing for them. The demand is proven. I mean, the ball's in their court, but they have to respond to it, you would think.
At this point, they really have to. So I think it's just a matter of time. We're going to continue our efforts. We're not going to slow down. We're not going to give up. We're not going to give in. We're going to outlive them. We're going to outlast them. We're going to outduel them, outmaneuver them, and the Snyder Cut will be released. So that's a perfect segue into the next topic. This one, we're just going to have to grit our teeth, bear down, and we're just going to have to talk about it. Henry Cavill, he did not tweet or make a social media post in support of the release of Snyder Cut. And that has drawn the ire of a lot of fans. That has drawn a lot of question marks. There's been a lot of confusion as to what's going on with him. We all have different opinions about it, or maybe we have similar opinions. We're going to talk about him. But he made some comments in Men's Health magazine. Comments about him playing Superman, comments about the previous DCEU movie. So this is what he said about him playing Superman. Let's start there. He says, "I've not given up the role. There's a lot I have to give Superman yet. A lot of storytelling to do. A lot of real, true depths to the honesty of the character I want to get into. I want to reflect the comic books. That's important to me. There's a lot of justice to be done for Superman. The status is, you will see." So, starting there, Manu, you can start us off. What do you think of his comments on him playing Superman in the future?
I don't know what to make of it, honestly. He didn't really say much there. You know, it sounds like a lot of word salad.
Very true.
He didn't really say much there. I don't know. I feel like it's basically what we've always gotten from Henry. I think that out of most of the cast, he's been the one that's been the most reticent and hasn't fully bought into Zach's vision for the character. This is not, and I'm saying that off of, there's plenty of quotes from him over the years talking about the right mistakes were made, talking about how he was very jealous of the reception that Wonder Woman had gotten, and I don't know really what to think. I really wish that he would have had tweeted out the hashtag. Maybe he has his own personal reasons for not doing so. I do think that seeing his cohorts and castmates and all these people that he's been working with for so long stand up and take a stand, it would have been nice to see him do the same. I don't know why he didn't, and I really do wish that he had, but again, it's disappointing. But again, coming from Henry, I can't say that I'm surprised or taken aback, because again, he's made many comments over the past few years that have kind of shown that, this is kind of where he stood. I think that he's a brilliant Superman. I love him in Zach's movies. Maybe when he said that, what he said, he was mostly talking about Justice League. But the part of that quote, I don't think you mentioned it, that really bothered me the most is when he said BVS was a Batman story.
Yeah.
I was very upset to read that, because further from the truth. BVS is very much a Superman movie. Even though Batman plays a big part in it, it's still very much a continuation of Man of Steel and the themes and the arcs that were started over there. So I was really taken aback by that. Maybe again, I just want to try to give him the benefit of the doubt, because in the theatrical cut, a lot of his the Superman stuff was removed from the theatrical cut of Batman v Superman. But when you watch the ultimate cut, when you watch Zack Snyder's true vision for that movie, it is very much without a doubt a Superman film. So I was really taken aback by that part of his comments. So by the rest, it's all par for the course for Henry. And I don't know. I guess the question is, where does he go from here with Superman? Does he come back or not? Do I want him to come back or not? I really don't know. I don't know how to feel about it.
Let me go ahead and give the quote. So the quote in the Men's Health magazine article says, Henry said, "Man of Steel, a great starting point. If I were to go back, I don't think I'd change anything. Batman v Superman, very much a Batman movie. And I think that realm of darkness is great for a Batman movie. Justice League, it didn't work." So now with those two comments, Paul, what do you think of, the whole situation?
I think Manu covered it pretty well. I mean, it's disappointing, but not surprising. I think word salad is a good descriptor. He says a lot without saying anything that you can really pin him down on. And I think he's very carefully worded so that you can interpret what you want to interpret from his comments. So the people that are big Henry Cavill supporters and want to believe that he stands up for Zach and is in line with Zach's vision can take that from his wording. They can apply that spin to it. Also, I mean, I think those of us that have watched him pass up opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to stand up for Zach kind of see through that a little and say, okay, I get what he's saying, and it's not what you want to think it is. Again, he's careful. He doesn't say it in a way that you can pin him down on it. But at the end of the day, I think what matters is what he didn't say, and he's been given another opportunity to stand up for Zach, and he passed on another opportunity to stand up for Zach, and he clearly isn't going to stand up for BVS either. I mean, there's a quote early on in the article where it says that he's looking up at the statues of Batman versus Superman and has a muted smile on his face and says, oh well, kind of just showing that he instead of taking an opportunity to stand up for the vision that Zach had and to stand up for Zach and to join us and join everyone else that came out and used the hashtag, he's on his own page doing his own thing, probably looking out for his own self-interest, and it's just disappointing, but not surprising.
All right. Well, I think that you guys were very kind, and you guys were very diplomatic. And I think that I am going to have to take the gloves off and go in with a complete honesty. I've been observing Henry Cavill's, comments and his quotes over the years. I'm not ever going to just judge someone or make a harsh judgment off of one thing. That's not fair. That's not good. But when you get repeated evidence, you will be a fool not to take the evidence and draw the logical conclusions. Henry Cavill has been asked about Batman v Superman. Here's a great example. He was in an interview with Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is a great reporter. I think he works for one of the Fox affiliates. And he was like very excited, interviewing him and Ben Affleck. I think it was for Justice League. And he said, I love Batman v Superman so much. Some people give it slack, but I think it's a great movie. He told Ben Affleck, you guys, you did a really good job. I appreciate it. A lot of people tell you how they feel about the movie. Let me ask you, how do you feel? First thing Ben Affleck said was, thank you very much for saying that. I will relay that to Zach. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. Showing that Ben knows that Zach has been through hell and back, with all the hate that he's gotten, the online bullying, the ridicule. He's a human being, and no human should have to go through that. So Zach's been going through a hard time, and Ben was really happy that someone was showing Zach love. He said, I will relay that to Zach. And obviously he said he liked the movie. He's defended the movie several times. Now it was Henry's turn, another section of the interview, and he said the same thing. And Henry's response was, Batman v Superman is a niche film. This was the first time that I saw Kevin McCarthy speechless. He's someone who talks a lot and always has something to say. He was like, okay. That is just one of the many instances in which he hasn't stood up for Zack Snyder, hasn't stood up for the film that he starred in, hasn't stood up for the fans who love the film, the people who have supported him, who have campaigned for him to be Superman, who always say he's a great Superman, even though other people, say, oh, no, he's a terrible Superman. He doesn't smile, blah, 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 all that stuff. There's another case that comes to mind where an interviewer asked him, what's the best part of playing Superman? And the first thing he said was the money. And it wasn't a joke. And then he went on to say other things. That just struck me as very weird. So I've always seen him as self-serving, as someone who is looking out he wants the role for the celebrity that it brings him, for being in a big franchise. I'm not saying he doesn't love the character. I just don't think that his motives are in the most honorable places. That's just the way I feel, and this is from all the evidence. Because if you look at other actors that have played these roles, look at someone like Jason Momoa, look at someone like Ray Fisher, look at someone like Ben Affleck and like Gal Gadot. They're also thankful to Zach for giving them their big break. They're also loyal. So it's just very, very disappointing to see this. I just have to call it like it is. I'm a huge Superman fan. I love what Zack Snyder has done with Superman and the stories that he's told. Zack Snyder made perfect Superman movies, made Superman in a very reverential, serious, epic, and mythic way, telling real stories. He actually tried to tell Superman stories that are cinema, not just theme park rides like, Martin Scorsese has been saying. So, without, going on too long, I didn't mean to make this a long monologue. All I have to say is that in this Men's Health article, he does the same thing again. He echoes the sentiments of the worst critics of the DCEU, who said that Batman v Superman was too dark and dour, and he's repeating the same thing, just in different words. He said, it's a Batman movie. That kind of darkness is great for a Batman movie. Basically meaning that for a Superman movie, it should be lighter, which is exactly what the haters said, which is the exact same thing that Jeff Johns was saying, talking about lightening up movies and, saying the same things the haters were saying, which is why I always questioned his motives, and people hated me for doing that until Justice League happened, until it started coming out that he was not the best of people. So, anybody who's listening to this and dislikes what I said, remember, I've been right many times. I don't like to pat myself on the back, but I'm telling you, you can ask ask anybody who knows my track record. Unfortunately, I've been right many times. Even before this episode, I felt this way about Henry Cavill for years. I just haven't really said anything strongly about it. So anyway, I took way too long. I apologize, guys.
Lupe, I'm going to agree with you. I'll just jump in and agree with you quickly on that. I think he's totally bought into these critical narratives that Batman vs Superman wasn't a good movie. I think you always hear the haters say he's a great Superman if only he had good material to work with, and I think he's bought into that narrative. I think he believes that he would be the most beloved Superman ever if only he had the right material to work with. And I don't necessarily think he dislikes Zack. I mean, Zack clearly likes him still to this day. Zack is not shy about sharing his positive feelings towards Henry. You don't necessarily see that reciprocated ever. I don't think I've ever seen. Maybe there's been some occurrences in the past, but I just think he feels that he's been held back by the material. He believes that he would be more beloved with a more mainstream approach, and it's disappointing to all of us who love Zack Superman. And just to clarify, I love Henry Cavill as Superman, but I love him as Zack Superman. I don't want to see the hope and optimism two-dimensional Superman they tried to give us in Justice League.
Wait, so you didn't is this guy still bothering you?
Oh gosh,
you're not a big
hope is like your car keys. Did you ever fight a hippo?
not to cut you off, but this is important as you go on, Paul. He was on board with the Justice League Superman. The Release the Snyder Cut campaign that we're having, part of it is because he was on board with that. He said in an interview that he had been working with Jeff Johns to do rewrites, to do reshoots, to quote unquote portray Superman in the right way. I'm not making this stuff up. So please continue,
right.
Paul.
No, I mean you're right. I mean you see it even in his comments today. If you look at his comments today in the context of what he's sort of hinted at in the past, and again he's very careful with his wording, so you can believe what you want, but the pattern over time has shown itself that he has a different approach to the character, and I think he feels held back by the approach that's been had so far. And it makes me very skeptical of whether he wants Zack's vision for Justice League to be shown, because maybe he still doesn't think that that's in line with what he wants to do with the character. And like you say. If he was on Team Johns for the rewrites, then he probably didn't like what Zack had done with the character. So,
sorry, not to cut you off, but why are you skeptical? Because in a Yahoo article, he said that the Snyder Cut would not make a difference. I'm not saying he didn't intimate, he didn't suggest, you didn't have to read into his words. The article is there. So you don't say you're confused.
Dodged it though, Lupe. He dodged it in a way because he said, "Oh well, the only way I could," because I don't know if it exists or not. Which I mean, he probably does know very well that it exists. But he says, "I have to look at it from a business perspective." Well, no, you don't. You're an actor. You don't have to look at it from a business perspective. You could speak from an artistic standpoint. He chose not to. He chose to look at it from a business perspective, and he chose to regurgitate the same negative narrative we hear from again the biggest haters, the bloggers. Oh well, what difference is it going to make? Why they're not going to spend more money on a bad movie? Nobody wants to see that, and that seems to be the side he aligns with. And again, it's because I think he seeks popularity. He wants to be beloved, and he looks to those narratives as to how he can position himself to be more beloved and make more money and be more popular.
Okay. Manu, do you have anything to say before we move on?
No, I think you guys both make really good points, and I agree, especially this idea that his motives are self-serving. I definitely think they are. I feel the way that I felt. Like I just wish that he would show more loyalty and stand up more for not only Zack's work but his work as well. Because like you said, we defended him as well when people were saying that he was too wooden and so on and so forth. We were always there to say that no, that he's a great Superman and that he has it in him and he's been doing great work so far. So I don't think it's just about standing up for Zack, but standing up for his own work as well. And I think that he is more interested in being positively received and being shown to be on the quote-unquote right side of things than to really stand with the people that have stood with him.
I guess what we're all trying to say is that instead of going for popularity, we all wish that Henry Cavill would be more like Superman and would stand for what's right, regardless of how unpopular it is. And with that, we can segue into some heated comments made by Alan Moore about comic book movies and comic books in the mainstream. So, Paul, can you read the comments for us?
Sure, yeah. So his comments kind of break down into two pieces. First of all, he starts off by saying that the superheroes on film would seem to be largely employed as cowardice compensators, perhaps a bit like the handgun on a nightstand. Save for the smattering of non-white characters and non-white creators, these books and these iconic characters are still very much white supremacist dreams of the master race. In fact, I think a good argument can be made for D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation as the first American superhero movie and the point of origin for all those capes and masks. So that's the first piece to, or the first component to what they've brought back up from his 2016 comments. And then further, they sort of go on and talk about how he says mass market superhero movies seem to be abetting to an audience who do not wish to relinquish their grip on A, their relatively reassuring childhoods, or B, the relatively reassuring 20th century. The continuing popularity of these movies to me suggests some kind of deliberate, self-imposed state of emotional arrest. So,
wow.
Yeah, harsh words.
That is a tongue lashing for the ages. It's like Scorsese went in, Coppola went in, all these directors went in, and then somebody dug up Moore's 3-year-old quotes and said, let me add gasoline into this little fire. So, Manu, do you want to respond to this? I know you're a fan of comic book movies, of characters. So Moore is talking about you. Can you please?
I actually read this piece a few years back when I was working on my piece for Snyder Cut. Yeah, so I read the entire piece, and it's a dense piece. It's a dense piece, and Alan Moore is a genius, but he has some very extreme point of views on things, and I do think that shows in his work.
Mm-hmm.
As far as these particular comments go, I don't have much to say on that first part. I really don't. But that second part, it's really hard to disagree with. I think.
Could you be specific? What second part?
The part about how we're trying to.
We can't relinquish our grip on our relatively reassuring childhoods and the relatively reassuring 20th century.
Yes, I think we're living in a time right now where people grow up later in life. I think that's something that, people are getting married later. People are moving back in with their parents after college. And those are things for many different reasons. The economy's not great, and it's better than it's been, but it's not great for everyone. And I think that we have an elongated childhood and adolescence now, longer than ever before. Even people who vote on elections are a lot older than they used to be. People who start, when they first vote, they're a lot older now than they ever used to be. And I think that all of that does play into this idea that we want to stay as young and as pure and as joyful as we were when we were kids a lot longer into adulthood. We want to shed responsibility and shed talking and thinking about things that make us feel uncomfortable, that make us feel scared. And the problem is, doing that makes the world a very difficult place to live in, because some things need to be faced. And I'm gonna bring it back. When you see what he's talking about, these big blockbuster movies, these Marvel films that focus on making you feel this sense of everything is going to be okay. These guys are going to save you. They're going to make sure that by the end of this 2 hours, everything will be wrapped up in a tiny little bow and you can go home and not worry about anything. As opposed to Snyder's films that were full of dread and danger and high stakes that weren't just always physical. They were philosophical, theological, and spiritual. And those things, they stay with you long after you've left the theater. And when you live in a world like that, you understand that people just don't want to be faced with their own realities. And he's absolutely right. People are hiding from the world in these comic book movies, and it's a shame because these heroes can be ways to show the world for what it really is and how to make it better. They can show us that path. And it's really a shame, because these characters are incredible and should be used for more than just to make us feel safe.
Wow, that was very well said. Now, Paul, you have the difficult position of coming on the heels of that. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try, really. I don't have a lot to add. I think Manu hit the nail on the head. Like Manu, I think he's being a bit extreme in his first comment about these things being a representative of a white supremacist dream of a master race. I mean, I think I never certainly caught that as a kid growing up watching these characters.
I would hope not, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think these are idealized characters that we would aspire to be like. I don't know if they're white supremacist wildest dreams of a master race. But what resonated with me was the second part, and I think you can see that clearly, that there is a self-imposed state of emotional arrest, and you do see it in the success of the Marvel movies, and you do see it in the bloggers and the critics and this vitriolic backlash to having any realism and any real stakes and any reflection of our society shown in these comic book movies. They want heroes being heroes. They want lighthearted fun. They want to be entertained and know that everything's going to be okay. And they want, I mean, the number of times I've heard people say they want their heroes to smile and tell them everything's going to be okay. How can any grown adult want that from a movie? I mean, it's shocking to me, but it seems to be that there's a large segment of our culture that wants to see that. And that's sort of what we're battling against when we're trying to, continue to see the kind of movies we like, the kind of movies that Snyder's makes, the kind of movies that try to say something and leave you shaken coming out of the theater and reflecting on some of the questions that are posed. Clearly, though, there's a large segment that doesn't want that. And it is self-imposed, and you just wonder how, is this just a phase? Is this cyclical? Is it something that will come to an end? Hopefully it will, but it's been going on a long time now.
That was also very well said. Appreciate your comments. I'm going to come at this from a different sort of philosophical standpoint. First off, in my opinion, nothing he said is wrong. I think he nailed everything he said. Maybe not perfectly, but there is truth in there, and let's just try to unpack it a little bit. The first thing that we have to be aware of, to admit as people who are mature intellectually, we're not kids, is that life is full of contradictions. And contradicting things can be true at the same time. We can live in a society that is plagued by white supremacy, but still be good people, have no ill intent, and people of color or people of groups that are discriminated against can still benefit from those systems and can still live in those systems. There is nothing wrong in that. Sometimes the world is just that way. Now, what he's saying about white supremacy and comic books, I don't think he means that there are some neo-Nazis sitting in some corners, forming a group and saying, all right, this is how we're going to, push out our doctrine. But I think he's talking about white supremacy as a system, which is very difficult to escape if we think of the history of the world the last 500, 600, 700,000 of years. The countries that have the most power, the groups that have the most power, and they're going to put out media that portrays them in a particular way. That's just the way it is. One thing we have to remember about Alan Moore is that he's hip-hop, he's punk rock, he's anti-establishment. He's like Rorschach, which is very interesting because Watchmen, his legendary graphic novel, portrays Rorschach as this person who cannot see the nuance in life, only sees it as black and white, only sees it as good and evil. There's no in between, and evil must be punished. And I feel like that is the flaw in Alan Moore's message. It's that he's not seeing the nuance in between the colors, the shades of gray. I think his comments about infantilism and this embarrassing man-child adult baby syndrome that we're suffering through, absolutely spot on. And personally, I blame a lot of it on Disney. Disney is a mass media conglomerate, a mass media force, the likes of which the planet has never seen before. And I know it sounds a little bit conspiratory, like I'm the guy in the basement, like, look, guys, see, this is happening. But the reason why I have this sort of view on it is because, see, as a kid growing up, my father was someone who did not like us to be bullied or coerced into following trends. And when we're kids, as kids do, everywhere there's this, oh, have you seen the new Disney movie? Oh, and if you haven't seen it or gone to Disney World, you sort of get shamed. And so we take that pressure to our parents, and my dad would just dismiss us. The exact thing that we asked him for, he'll give us the opposite. So if we said, oh, we wanted to see, the Aladdin movie, he'll be like, oh, you want to see Arabian Nights? All right, watch The Thief of Baghdad. That was my dad. And I really thank him for instilling those values in me, because as I've grown up, I've gotten to see that Disney's interpretation of the world has this effect that Alan Moore is critiquing. That's just one of the effects. And you can see it in the superhero movies that they put out, how they've dominated the entire sphere, dominated the narrative, dominated mass media. This quote that he has, we could probably do a whole part on it. I've gone on for long enough, but I will say that there is nuance to it. I can understand what he means by these films are functionally doing something that is dangerous and that's less than ideal, but I still enjoy them from time to time. At least for like the Marvel movies and co, I see them as what they are. They're for kids, they're vacuous, they have no substance to them. But there are superhero movies that do have substance to them and that try something different. And Zack Snyder is an example of a director that has tried that approach. And we've seen the vitriol and the hate that he has gotten for trying that. We've also seen films like Joker, which did something, different and tried to speak to, some of our most pressing political concerns, our emotional concerns, our psycho-social concerns. And so once in a while, there are films that will break that mold. People have talked about superhero fatigue, and is it going to happen? And people have made the case strongly and rightly that superhero fatigue is not going to happen. But what the death of the superhero genre is, it is that people are going to be into disliking the movies. All eyes are going to become open to how vacuous, how useless, how trite most of the content is. And people are going to turn and so with the comments from Scorsese, from Coppola, from Alan Moore, these are examples of how that is going to happen. Moving on to our next topic, Elizabeth Banks. Her Charlie's Angels movie, it bombed at the box office. It really did. It had a budget that was about $48 to $55 million. And in its opening weekend, it grossed $8.9 million domestic. That is a ridiculous bomb for something that is a blockbuster and had a decent amount of marketing to it. It was very visible. It has some big stars in it as well. And so Elizabeth Banks took to the news outlets, and this is what she said. If this movie doesn't make money, it reinforces a stereotype in Hollywood that men don't go see women do action movies. She also said they'll go see a comic book movie with Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel because that's a male genre. So even though those are movies about women, they put them in the same context of feeding the larger comic book world. So it's all about, yes, you're watching a Wonder Woman movie, but we're setting up 3 other characters, or we're setting up Justice League. So, guys, Elizabeth Banks has spoken. What do you say? Let's start with Paul.
Yeah, well, I don't know that it's that men don't want to support female-led action movies. I think there's a few things working against this one. Just from a personal perspective, I didn't have any interest in seeing this. But then again, I didn't see the 2000 and 2003 Charlie's Angels, and I never watched the original version. So I have no attachment to this franchise. I'm not sure which demographic is most tied to the original Charlie's Angels franchise, but for me, there's no, natural interest in it. I didn't see much marketing for it. I'm open to a female-led action movie, I suppose, but I'm also not a huge fan of action movies in general. Just straight action. I'm more interested in sci-fi and movies that take that sort of a skew. And so for me, this one just didn't hold an interest for me. It wasn't something that interested my wife. I never heard her mention it, nor do I even know if she knew it existed. So this just wasn't ever a topic of conversation. Now, her comments about the Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel being successful because they're part of a franchise that's geared towards men. I don't think that's... I guess it depends whether you think comic book movies in general are geared towards men. I think they skew that way for sure, but certainly there's, I think, a growing female audience for that type of film. I remember being excited about Wonder Woman. Was that partly because it was part of the Snyderverse at the time? Absolutely. That was part of the excitement. But there was also a lot of people that had been waiting a long time just to see that character on the big screen. When it comes to Captain Marvel, that I had no interest in because I'm not invested in the Marvel universe, and it seemed like it was aimed more at kids. And sure enough, I did eventually see Captain Marvel, and it was aimed at kids, and my daughter loved it. She's 8, and that's who that movie was made for. It was made to bring 8-year-old girls into the MCU prior to Infinity War, and it was successful. The cat had the alien that came out of its mouth, and my daughter thought that was great, and that's what they're going for with that movie, right? So it hit its target audience. And with Marvel, as we've talked about, it's a license to print money. It's a guarantee of success. These other franchises don't have that, so you just didn't
doesn't have anything compelling about it to bring people out. But I don't necessarily think that it's as simple as saying men don't support female-led films, because there are a lot of female-led franchises that people do want to see. Recent example for me, at least, was Terminator Dark Fate. I was excited about going to see that one. Showed up opening weekend. Now, obviously, I wasn't. I guess maybe I'm not representative of the majority because Terminator flopped. But I just don't think it's as simple as saying men aren't interested in female-led films.
Manu, what do you have to say?
It's not the first time that I've heard these comments being made. I think the Booksmart, the director for Booksmart, made similar comments when Bookmart was going through similar issues during its first week and a half in theaters. And I can understand why it's so frustrating for these women who put so much hard work into their movies, but I still would like to see numbers on it. I mean, okay, if men aren't interested, just looking at population, there are more women than men, so why didn't women show up for these movies? Like, I think that's also another question, because if it's only making $8 million, it means that it's not just men that didn't go, women didn't go either. So I understand the frustration, and there's a lot of anger, and there's a big movement in Hollywood right now to try to get more voices out there. And I think that's very important. Might it be like to get more minorities behind, in front, writing, producing. We need all of that. I totally agree with that. But I just, like Paul said, I just don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, it's a male female thing. I don't. Me personally, I was not intrigued with any of the trailers that I saw, which is a shame because I like the women that were cast in this movie. I think that Kristen Stewart has done a great job of doing a 180 on her career since the Twilight days. I really like Naomi Scott, who was also in the Power Rangers reboot. I thought she was good in that as well. And it has a good cast, but the trailers just didn't hold my interest very much. And about her comments about geared towards male, the comic book movies, I can kind of see what she means. Those movies are kind of playing on a different field, because they have a whole lot of other stuff that to bring people in. It's not just the movie itself, but it's part of all of these other movies. So, but yeah, I don't really agree with her, and I think that there needs to be more information and data on this whole thing. I don't think it's just a male female thing. I do think there's some. I don't think that it's a gender thing. I can't. I don't really understand why she went down that path.
All right, let me break it down so it can be broken forever and ever. Her claims are so dubious. Her claims are so bogus. Frankly, it's embarrassing. I'm going to go in on her harshly because, I actually really respect Elizabeth Banks.
I do too. She's done a lot of good work over the last decade.
She's done a lot of good work. She is a very intelligent, very capable woman. From what I've heard, the movie is actually a decent flick. And for her to be using gender bias as a crutch is very irresponsible, because gender bias is real. Like, it's a real thing out there. It's really something that holds women back, and it must be hella frustrating. But don't use your frustration on, all the hard work and the years and the passion and the hopes and dreams that you have in the film that you just put out, and the failure that it's been met with, and use gender bias as a crutch. It's very disrespectful to real gender bias, and also you're going to create a situation where when real gender bias happens and people, talk about it, it's going to be like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. People will be like, oh, you're just saying that again. I'm really disappointed that she even reached like this. So let's give the evidence why it's not. All right, let's talk about action movies, male-driven action movies that have flopped. Robin Hood last year. Gemini Man just bombed so hard.
Starring Will Smith.
Whoa, that was a bomb.
2 Will Smiths, right. And it wasn't enough.
Hellboy, bomb.
Really good movie too.
A good movie too. Another good movie that bombed, Upgrade. It didn't necessarily bomb because the budget was so low.
$5 million.
But it didn't do as well as other action movies tend to do. Blade Runner 2049, based on a known IP, it basically destroyed the production company that set it up. Like, they were like, if we don't make this money back, we're gonna fold. And it didn't make the money back. If we look at female-driven action movies, now you can say the entire cast is not female, but they're female-driven action movies that are not in it's a male, dominated. Mad Max Fury Road. Look at that. Look at stuff like Hunger Games and the success that Hunger Games had. She's got to look beyond the crutch of the gender bias, and she's got to see a couple of things were working against the film. One, things that aren't superhero movies and are blockbusters, they're just having a hard time. It's very sad. This is exactly what Scorsese was talking about. Now, he related it to real cinema, and Charlie's Angels doesn't seem like it's real cinema. It seems to be another theme park ride. But one of the fallouts, some of the fallout of this whole Marvel as an invasive force is that films that aren't Marvel films are suffering. It's as if Marvel has taken up all the air in the room, all the attention, all the hype, and it's as if people have a limited bandwidth for what they can support. It's weird. Conceptually, passion and love and hype should be unlimited, but it seems like there's only enough room for so much, and Marvel has just taken up all of it. So it's very rare to see anything that's not Marvel, not superhero in general, do well. King Arthur, a movie that we absolutely adore. Most of us here, and a lot of people love that movie. It was an abject failure. So she has no leg to stand on with this argument. I'm severely disappointed that she said this. I can tell she's very frustrated. She's very upset. She, made comments about, if it's going to be a flop, it's good that you're appearing it, multiple times. She's like a writer, a producer, director, and actress. So she owns it, wholly. But it's not because of that. I really hope she finds success as she goes forward. I hope that this is not like her last chance to do something like this. And maybe she should go do a Marvel movie. I'm sorry. On that note, we're going to have Paul leave because Paul has to go take care of some business.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Enjoyed it. Looking forward to having another discussion next week.
Sure thing. All right. And we can find you where, Paul? On the internet.
You can find me on Twitter @_Paul_P.
All right. So we'll see you next week. Cheers.
All right. See you guys.
Bye, Paul.
It's just the two of us. Now, we have come to our coming soon section. In the coming soon section, we do a bunch of trailer reactions. And so we have 3 trailers to talk about today. Let's start with the Cats trailer. You saw the Cats trailer and you survived. Or maybe you loved it. I don't know. Tell us all about your reaction to the Cats trailer.
Meh. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. It looks, I don't know, it just looks weird. It doesn't look bad or horrible, but there's just some kind of disconnect between what I'm seeing and my brain can't really process it. It's got a really great cast. I think it does, but nothing about this movie gets me excited or gets me wanting to see it, really, to be honest.
This is just weird. The visual effects, apparently, if you hear them talk about the techniques and how they got like this special, they got like a cat choreographer. Dude, they really like put a lot of effort and energy and money and passion into giving this authentic portrayal of anthropomorphic cats.
You got it,
yes.
You got it. Took you a few tries, but you got there.
Finally. And it just looks weird because, as you said, your eyes are seeing and your brain is telling you that you're not seeing it. It's like a horror movie. It's like your brain is like, I cannot process this weirdness, and your eyes are taking it in like, this weird stuff is happening. Oh, yes, it is happening. And you see like Jason Derulo and Idris Elba.
Yeah, like
what is going on?
Jason Derulo, like I was like, what? How did this happen?
What is going on? It's really funny. I do not know why they thought making this film was a good idea. I hope they didn't spend a lot of money on it. I haven't yet, looked at the budget figures. I don't see this doing very well commercially. They have a huge cast.
Yeah,
so
I don't agree with that. I think it might. Because it's coming out during Christmas time. I know that the Cats musical was very popular in America. So I do think it might hit that nostalgia factor. And again, Taylor Swift is in it, and she tends to draw in an audience. I'm not sure if it'll. I might be wrong on this, but I can kind of see a world where this does make some kind of bank.
Personally, I don't. It's possible, and I'm sure that these are all the points that they gave to the producers.
Yeah, definitely. We
yeah,
got
but
Taylor
you
Swift.
see-
Like,
We got Taylor Swift on deck.
Yeah.
And if you didn't trust Taylor Swift, we got Jason Derulo too.
and
So we
Idris
got black,
Elba,
we got
and
white.
and we got Rebel Wilson. You know, who-
Exactly.
You know, so
Dude,
yeah.
the cast is stacked.
Yeah.
Like let me pull up the cast list. Okay, so we got Idris Elba, Ian McKellen,
Oh yeah, I forgot he
Rebel
was.
Wilson, Judi Dench, Taylor Swift,
That's Dame
James-
Judi Dench.
James Corden, Jennifer Hudson. I mean, it just Jason Derulo. It just goes on and on. I mean, hey, you can't forget Jason Derulo.
You really
all right?
can't. You really can't.
And the dude is out there having a good time. Obviously, as an actor, you must be able to portray any role, and you must be able to portray it with all your heart. If I was playing a role, I'd be like, I'll be so shy, like, this is weird. Just do it. Jason Derulo is having the time of his life. Nobody's having as much fun as Jason Derulo. And so, hey, do your thing, brother. Just go ahead and do your thing. So my reaction to the trailer is that I like that it tells a bit more of what the story is. At least we see that there's a journey for this cat to go to, from being mundane to becoming a special person in the cat world. But apart from that, it looks like a horror movie. I don't think I will ever see it because I'm scared, and if I do, it'll just be for the morbid curiosity.
Morbid curiosity. That's funny.
All right. Going from Cats to Prey and Christopher Nolan, but Christopher Nolan's not as good as Michael Bay at this, is one of the directors that still does explosions and car stunts in real time. Like, they will augment explosions with some CGI, but a lot of the stuff that you're seeing is actually stuff that they do on set. There are videos online where you can see the behind stuff. Yeah. They're actually flipping cars. They're actually, creating those huge fireballs and those, huge, so artistic.
I dug it. I dug it. Like when we're like breaking the car towards the David.
Yeah, dude, it's this whole thing. There's this concept in design and in marketing, this sort of high and low. You match high and low. So you're matching high art versus low brow art, and it's so beautiful to see. It works so perfectly. And as you said about the whole referential thing and the whole Ryan Reynolds fitting so perfectly with this. This felt like a trailer that Ryan Reynolds came up with.
I actually have no problem believing that. But I'll also add the great thing about filming in Italy is like the architecture of that city gives you such a different vibe than what you're used to in an action movie. Like
yes.
When you have that dude that's doing parkour, I've never seen anything like that because so few things are actually shot in those cities. So it seems like you're seeing something that it's something you've never seen before, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And as I've said before, this is one of my most anticipated movies. I'm really thankful to Netflix for them being a safe haven of sorts to these directors who have been beleaguered in the mainstream. I feel like, let me continue with my, exile streak today of getting canceled. A lot of these directors have been beleaguered by entertainment media that favors Marvel and Disney. So directors like Zack Snyder, directors like Michael Bay, these block directors. And for Netflix to be a safe haven for the place you can go and create free of the grasp, the invisible hand of entertainment media I will forever be thankful for them for creating that avenue for these creators. The only thing obviously that still, gives me pause and I'll always be critical about until they're able to change it is that these directors normally shoot on film, but they're forced on digital, and visually their images are not as beautiful and as artistic as they normally are when they shoot on film. They lose that gritty grain, that texture to the image quality. It's a very subtle thing, but if you're tuned into it, if your eye is able to detect it, it's quite an important thing. We both love that trailer. Definitely when Six Underground comes out, why don't we do a watch together like we did for
Triple Frontier?
Triple Frontier. Let's do that. Me, you, and Chris. Yeah.
I'm down for that. That'd be cool.
For sure. On to the last trailer of the day, and it's The Way Back from Gavin O'Connor, starring Ben Affleck. Gavin O'Connor is the director of, he directed Warrior. He also directed The Accountant, which starred Ben Affleck. So this is their second project together. Manu, what do you think about the trailer for The Way Back?
I feel like, you just keep pushing and pulling on me. We just went from talking about Bayhem to this more emotional and much more grounded film. I thought that the trailer was amazing. It's so well shot. It's so beautiful. I think it does such a great job of like setting the story. It sets the board. It shows you Affleck as this broken alcoholic. My favorite shot is when he's in the shower and he's in the shower with a can of beer.
Dude,
and
that was what?
He's got like he puts the can in the shower caddy. I'm like, damn, that's serious. Like you can't even get through a shower without having a drink. And I just liked it. And I love basketball. I still play to this day as much as I can. And I really do like the usage of the sport to kind of bring him back to the man that he once was, because we can see through the movie and through images and through some of the information that we're getting, it seems like he wasn't always like this, that he's lost something or that something happened to him to drive him this way, that he was once somebody that was, well, not broken. And I think that Affleck and all that he's gone through and continues to go through, I think is the perfect actor to lead a film such as this. And I think that it's going to parallel his real life struggle, and I think that is going to add a whole other dimension to this movie, because everything that you're going to get is going to be very firsthand. There's going to be like a lot. He won't have to do research to get this right. He's going to use a lot of his own experiences, and even sometimes when he's talking, like some of the lines in that trailer, like when he talks about, I want to be happy again and I've made so many mistakes, and like, so like when I hear that, like I'm not I like a part of my brain is, I'm not hearing the character, I'm hearing Ben, because we know so much about what he's gone through and the mistakes that he's made. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think that is going to be a very beautiful and cathartic film, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah. Just to plainly say what you didn't say, Ben Affleck deals with alcoholism. Chronic alcoholism as a disease. It's not something he's totally overcome, because it isn't something that anyone that is afflicted with it in a real way overcomes. It's a lifelong battle, a lifelong journey. And him doing this movie just on principle alone is very emotional. This trailer almost made me cry. The thing I'm wondering is, why is this coming out early in the year? I think it's a February or March release.
It's March. March, yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, why wasn't this set in award season? This looks like one that's going to be a huge awards contender, at least in my mind.
I agree. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. If it had come out just a couple of months earlier, I think it would have been dead set into the Oscar race.
Yeah.
Just a couple of months. Yeah.
I think obviously Ben Affleck is at a time in his career when he's building back up. I think he's gone through quite a torrid period with.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because he had already built himself back up.
Yeah.
He's had a very up and down, but I'll say, like, I miss Ben. Like I do. I always miss Ben when he's not working, and I'm just happy to see him.
He's a great artist.
Yeah, he is.
A great artist, director, and
screenplay writer, because
he's done it all.
His first Oscar was for writing Good Will Hunting, which is a fantastic movie.
Yes, it is, absolutely. So for this one, I think the play might have been, all right, let's set it up during awards season, because we don't want it to be seen that we're going for that, so that if it doesn't get awards, it isn't seen as a failure.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
That might have been smart. Let's just play as a good movie that's going to, endurance, going to do well. And as you said, just when you see the tragic things he's going through, you know that these are either things Affleck has gone through or things that he knows alcoholics go through, or some alcoholics he knows, because he's been in it. He's been in the mire. He's been in the pain of it. And so there's an authenticity to it that you can't get from any other actor, pretty much. And it just breaks my heart seeing it. And as you said, we're both huge fans of basketball. We played all our lives. We've played organized. So we know the power of sports to heal people, to do good things for people. I'm someone who suffers from depression from time to time. And basketball is something that has helped me through a lot of, depressive periods. It's taught me a lot of, life lessons apart from that. And so this powerful message of how sports and organized sports and responsibility, that's one thing, the responsibility that comes from sports, whether you're a captain or you're someone who's responsible to your team and your teammates, that sort of thing. I think it's a very powerful message, and I think it's going to transcend just being a basketball movie. It's going to be a life movie. The conversations that he has with his ex-wife, who he has a child with in the film, just remind me of how he is separated from Jennifer Garner, but she still cares for him and loves him and reaches back to him to help him and give him a helping hand. The whole thing just got me. This is like too much.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Dude, this is how dare they? How dare Gavin O'Connor?
Yeah, and I was gonna mention that. I think Gavin O'Connor is the perfect director for this. I really think he's one of the most underrated guys that's out there right now.
Yeah.
When you watch what he's done with Warrior, when you've seen, you mentioned it earlier, The Accountant, which is a very good movie, and also Pride and Glory with Edward Norton and Colin Farrell. He has a great way of dealing with grounded emotionality, with real life issues. Like that's what made Warrior so great to me. It wasn't the fight scenes are great, but it was just like all of these characters felt real. All of their struggles felt real to me very quickly, and to the point where when you get to the last fight at the end, you are rooting for both brothers, and even in Pride and Glory, when you have two brothers that are on different sides of an issue. It's just like, I think that he does such a good job of bringing humanity to characters and to his movies that really, really shine through.
I completely agree with you, and this was my favorite trailer. Definitely, without a doubt. I enjoy the Michael Bay one for different reasons, but there is just no denying that this is cinema.
I agree. And I'll add, it's also because I think we also feel this way because I think in a little way we kind of feel like we've been through these ups and downs with Ben. I feel like we've been watching this whole thing play out kind of like in real time.
He's been very open and very honest about his struggles with alcoholism, about his failures and his fights.
So I hope this doesn't sound right, but I'm very, very proud of him, and I can't wait for this movie, and I hope that it does very well.
Absolutely, because I think that apart from this just being a movie or whatever, I think at some level this can be his way of giving back to people who struggle with alcoholism. There have movies made about people who alcoholism, but I feel like this in some way will be a way of one out who is struggling. Remember that heartfelt message that he penned about relapsing and going back into rehab and all that stuff. And he was also he said he wrote that so that people who are struggling out there don't feel alone. So I think that this is just another full way of him giving back. And so that wraps up our 11th episode of ENN. This was an exciting one. Heightened emotions. We were unbridled, unchained. It was uncut. It was raw. It was that 100% pure cocaina. And I'm so happy, that you were here with us, Manu. It's always good to have you on.
Thank you very much.
You're a regular on this podcast, and I'm sure the people are going to see you here very, very soon. So where can people find you on Facebook to send you all the hate mail? Guys, if you have anything that you didn't like in the past that I said, just direct it to